otherworld life forms.
Huh?
A fucking alien. A fucking alien.
I wanna snap your neck and spit on you,
Predator 2 was released in 1990. Imperfect sequels deserve praise. RoboCop 2, Crocodile Dundee 2, Short Circuit 2, Jaws 2, Weekend at Bernie's 2, Living in the World of Wrath and Khan, and Godfather 2, and Empire's Striking Back, an Aliens Terminator sequel worthy of James Cameron, one of the finest sequels of all time, deserving of medals. I'm saying that this is one of the best sequels of all time, and if you disagree with me, you might be right, but come at me, bro. Predator 2, Danny Glover, Bill Paxton, Maria Conchita Alonso, Robert Davi, Ruben Blades. Who's your favorite Ruben?
Mary Stuart Masterson as the Predator.
Kevin Peter Hall does return to play the Predator one more time, and it shows. It shows because it's the next best performance of a Predator actor that really understood the mannerisms and the movements and stuff like that, where anything after this movie never quite gets right.
Released against Home Alone, it did not make the money that it was anticipated to enjoy. Not a failure, but not a success. Sort of a middle of the road happening. And what it came down to be is something where if you didn't get Arnold Schwarzenegger back, what's the point? And I say Danny Glover carries this film, and it is a lion's task, but he is so good. The only thing you have to ignore about this film is the last 10 minutes, even though it is one of the best last 10 minutes.
I was gonna say
there does come a moment. Danny Glover, Mike Harrigan, is following the Predator through an elevator shaft. Just magically, he just falls onto a spaceship. I love it. I think it is Terminator 2 good.
My first impression of this movie is that it's super sweaty and super dirty.
Oh, it's hot.
And
it's hot.
Everyone is on cocaine and everyone is angry except for Bill Paxton. I love how different the tone is, the color palette is. It has classic cliche line scenes like the lieutenant going, "God damn it, Mike, the feds are calling the shots on this one. My hands are tied."
God damn it, Mike, the feds are calling the shots on this. My hands are tied.
Danny Glover's Harrigan is just different enough. I think it was actually kind of an inspired casting choice. Not who you would think would be the next person to take on a Predator, but in everything this movie has to offer and show you in the journey that it takes, it works.
They let Joel Silver cast this movie with all the people he worked with on Lethal Weapon.
Well, it's got Richard Donner's brother in it again.
Yeah.
It does. He's so good in this.
The movie has a very Lethal Weapon and kind of RoboCop feel to some degree. I feel like kind of the media, the way that they play with the media in the movie a little bit feels like that RoboCop kind of feel.
There was this huge boner for Jamaican voodoo gangs in the early 1990s. Like you had that Steven Seagal movie where he's fighting.
Same year. Yeah.
There's that must have been a thing that I missed in real life, that there was Jamaican voodoo gangs.
You want some ganja, man?
We're recording this in 2025, and I can say right now, I have such a boner for Jamaican voodoo gangs.
King Willie's Voodoo Gang is what they're called. Yeah. Because, like I said, McTiernan wanted to tone down Arnie winking at the camera. This movie doesn't give a fuck. I worship at the altar of this movie. I'm one of the people that's like, I don't know which one I like better, this one or the first one, from a rewatchable standpoint, not from a filmmaking standpoint. But Bill Paxton is one of the good guys. Bill Paxton says,
God damn, is that bitch on the rag or what?
and that's a good guy saying that line. It's just such a wacky interpretation of 1990s version of 1997.
Because we are talking about the chronological order of these films.
Yeah.
This film takes place, even though it's released in 1990, it's taking place in 1997.
but it still fits into this time slot because nothing has happened between the two. But yeah, it does jump into the future. There's a fucking sex scene in this movie that's the most vocalized, animalistic, coke-fueled sex scene in history, with a girl just like she's fucking growling on top of this guy.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ben, because I think that this movie, again, it came out in 1990. I saw it in 1991. I was approximately 13 years old, and I think it gave me an unrealistic opinion of sex. I always figured that if I was going to be having sex with a person, they would end up being a wild, ravaging monkey woman.
You thought you did something wrong if she wasn't screaming like that.
I thought that's the way it worked.
And you had to wait till Prey was released in 2022 to find that out?
Well, no.
What singles it out from everything that came after Predator is this movie assumes we already know what the Predator looks like. So the movie just decides to take off from the beginning, unlike the first one, which is a slow burn. Predator just starts fucking shit up from the get-go in this movie. And I love that about this one. I don't think they all needed to do that. Like we said, Prey, the setting made it like what John said it should have been. This one, it's an action movie. It's not really a horror movie. There's sci-fi elements, but it's an action movie. It's like a cop movie. Well, the first half, that's why I love this movie so much, and I think it's so underrated, is that I don't even think there's 3 acts. I think there's 2 acts. There's the first act, which is all the cop stuff that ends in the subway. And then after that is the second act, which is just this very long, exciting, extended chase, which I think is just masterfully done by, was it Stephen Hopkins?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was Stephen Hopkins. But I do think that there is a 3-act structure to this. In the first act, an establishment of the world and the characters in which those cops exist. The second act is when the Predator fucks that up, and everyone is like, "What do we do? What do we do? What do we do?" And then the third act is Danny Glover being like, "You killed Danny." And then it is Danny Glover becoming the Predator.
The movie clearly has a 3-act structure. I just looked at it in this lens of like, there's, Jerry, go do this. You're the new hothead, and we're finding out this and we're finding out that. And this movie uses Silvestri's score so good in the cop scenes where they're investigating. It just all works.
Yeah,
this movie just like it takes itself seriously enough, but it leans into the absurdity of the drug cartel, like the way LA is perceived at this point.
Right from the start, the score does a lot of the heavy lifting, and it's still totally great. The tone and the level of violence are perfect in this movie. It's exactly what we need as a follow-up to the original. The translation of the hunt from the jungle to the city is done really well. Works perfectly, using the rooftops, similar to being in the trees and whatnot. I love that the Mexican cartels versus the Jamaican gangs, feels like a believable situation that 1997 LA was dealing with in a movie world, and it makes the city feel dangerous. It adds a lot of the look of the cinematography and the production design and stuff adds a lot of atmosphere to the city. The heat that you feel. Like, I think this is the sweatiest movie of the entire series.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone's shirts are just drenched.
Harrigan's like walking around in full like suits with jackets on, but he's soaked in sweat.
What is with the fedoras? Everyone's wearing a fedora.
I love that.
97, man. Fashion.
97 fashion.
Yeah, it's 1990s interpretation of 97. Like, I guess everyone wears those now, and they wear these weird glittery golden shirts, and they have crazy weird laser scopes on their guns.
Real quick, just because this can go by very fast as the film presents it. This is the progression of showing the Predator in Predator 2, of how we see their heat vision, their camo and things, the timeline that it comes out. 5 minutes in, we see Predator vision, the heat vision, looking at something. 10 minutes in, you see a Predator in camo and its eyes flash at people. 25 minutes in, full view of Predator uncloaked doing shit. Now I know that this one, I'm pleased with this one taking that fast approach. I think, like Ben, you said it, some films maybe could have taken the slow approach. Prey probably being the next best film that could have done that, and most other films can just come right out of the gate like Predator 2 does.
This one didn't want to do that.
No, it was the reverse, and that's fine. I love it for that. I'm not griping on it that it didn't take that first film's approach, but it's drastically different.
You got these feuding, like, drug war things happening. There's so much happening in this movie, and it all just gets thrown at you so fast. You know, like, I mean, the opening scene is this big drug war shootout with, like, the Colombians or whatever, and then on the other side of the city, there's like the Jamaican shootout is happening, which we don't see. And then, like, immediately you get, like, Harrigan is like, you know, he's the cop that doesn't take no shit from nobody. And then you get Morton Downey Jr. as, like, a sleazy, like, TMZ type of reporter. It's all established, like, in, like, 10 minutes. So much is, and then you get your Bill Paxton character showing up, and it's like, okay, well, now we have this new guy, like, you know, and his character does what it does, which to me is like a combination between Hudson and the sleazy car guy from True Lies. Yeah, basically.
Ridiculous.
One of my favorite shots, but I don't know why it happens, is the Predator up on the building with the skull.
Oh God, with the lightning
strike. Like, such a freaking cool shot, but what is that even? What's going on?
That's like the jump the shark moment.
What does
right
it even
there,
mean?
It's a cool shot, but it's so
It's such a cool shot, though.
I am recharging. No sense
Possibly
whatsoever.
my favorite scene of the movie, and definitely my favorite medic scene throughout the series, when he fixes himself in the bathroom, all of that stuff. But again, an example of just leaving his technology. He just leaves it there. It's in that bathroom, available for anybody to come along and be like, what's this fucking shit?
Yeah, but didn't he get his arm cut off just recently?
Yeah, he did. But I don't think that the Predator,
they leave
John,
shit
I don't
all
think
over the place.
I don't think the hunters themselves, like, out of the race of predators, I don't think they're the ones that are supposed to be responsible for, like, cleaning up their shit, because in later movies you find out that there's, like, other predators that come and clean it up for them. I'm making excuses right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's just shit everywhere. And now in this film, we've established an agency that is trying to find this shit. Like, it just seems like they'd know a hell of a lot more. They would have found a ton of shit. To some degree, the world would know more about this situation.
I love his little camping supply first aid kit. He uses a little mixture of drywall and tile to, like,
it kind of makes sense. He's making like a plaster. It's freaking, I love it. But also maybe my favorite scene of this film to some degree. I mean, it's part of that finale, which is just so great. It's a big chunk of it, but
when Mike shows up and he's like, don't worry, I'm a cop. And then the old lady who is not B. Arthur.
I don't think he gives a shit.
And then one of the other standout scenes for me, clearly because of my love for Aliens, is the trophy case moment. It was just such an amazing thing to see as a 14-year-old or whatever age I was when this came out. To be honest, my recollection of being able to see R-rated movies where I went to the theater, I still lied to my mom about what I was actually watching, but I was getting into the R-rated movies by 1990. This was the year that I truly remember getting myself into R-rated movies. This one I watched back to back twice. I loved it so much. I said, I'm staying here and watching it again for free. I didn't pay for it. I was a little freaking movie hopper. It ended with that alien Easter egg, and I just was like pissing myself of like, oh my God, they've done it. They've connected this series to my favorite movie. It's so, the possibilities are so exciting. Crazy. But I do want to point out something that is a failure of Predator 2. Or no, sorry, not Predator 2. A failure of every movie that came after it. The trophy case not only connected the Predator series to the Alien series and gave us the possibilities, which we did get, Alien vs. Predator movies. But why have we not been given an opportunity to see either the Predator hunting one of those other creature skulls? Those could be what the Predators really like fear. Like that could be the thing where, so this is the point I was going to make about this next Predator movie that supposedly has some kind of from the perspective of the Predator storytelling. We could have a movie where you are following the Predators fighting against one of these other creatures that's bigger and more badass than them, and they are the heroes trying to survive against another race that clearly has an advantage on them. but like almost like Planet of the Apes. Like, let's have a movie where the predators are the main characters. The predators are fighting something that's bigger and more badass than them, and they're the heroes that we're hoping survive this situation. The creatures that they could fight are right there on the wall in the trophy case. There are 2 skulls that are even bigger than bigger than the predators, bigger than the alien skull. They look like freaking elephant skulls, like alien elephants. Like, what is that creature?
The only problem with that is I think once you do that and you make a predator character the protagonist in a movie, you can't go back. The Jerry skull scene really takes it up a notch. And you see how they, spray off the fucking, they spray off the blood and the flesh and all that stuff. And they polish it. Like, that scene is gnarly, dude.
That's rad.
And they put it on this, it like sticks. And I love that scene too, because you don't know, but you're in the ship on that scene. You don't know it because it's such a tight shot. He's putting that stuff up on like a thingy or whatever. But
in answer to your query, John, I would say yes. I would be interested in seeing the alien species that were sort of introduced through skulls. But I don't think it needs to be a whole movie. It would be cool to see that as like an introduction, where one predator goes to a planet and then kills that giant rhinoceros that makes the first
John,
skull.
how about that arena? How about that gladiator arena thing you were talking about? Like, have one of those things in there.
It could show up in any number of ways. I agree with you, Scotty. It doesn't need to be a full movie. It could just be a portion.
Would you guys agree? Like, this is the only movie to come after the first movie that actually feels like a genuine sequel and not some sort of like fanfare nonstop callback. It's just a sequel set in a different time with different characters, different place.
Yeah.
After this one, there are callbacks, but you're right. Prey does a good job of just standing on its own, though.
But if you are consistent with most other series we've talked about, you will say 2 is your favorite over 1.
Predator 2 is, I think, one of the best disappointing sequels ever produced, in the same vein as RoboCop 2 and Die Hard 2. It is as good. It is a Ghostbusters 2. It is a thing of beauty that lives up to the first one. Not as much, but it is so good that I bathe in the joy of it existing.
Let me ask you both this. Would you say that it's the best sequel ever made that has a completely different cast than its first movie?
Don't forget about Mary Stuart Masterson, though.
What's a better like part 2 that completely gets rid of all the characters? Because Dutch was supposed to be in this movie. He was supposed to be Keyes. Mm-hmm. Keyes was written as the Dutch character. Dutch was going to be the Gary Busey character. Yeah. Well, the original script, and we won't get into it, it was bonkers. Like, Harrigan was like Dutch's brother, who was a cop in LA. It went nuts. And I'm glad they didn't do that, because then you fall into Jaws, where like, Jaws only goes after the Brody family.
Who could have played Schwarzenegger's brother convincingly? Who do you think?
Danny Glover.
Ben Thorson.
Yeah, because most of them have returning cast, so that is that bit. I'd have to really think that through.
But it keeps the spirit of the first movie.
Oh no, so Aliens! You have the returning character of Sigourney Weaver. So
I was going to say Jaws 2, but you still have Roy Scheider.
Jaws 2, like the whole fucking cast is the same. It doesn't bring back original cast members, but it feels like the same world, and it feels everything. So much about it feels like it belongs in that same universe. Where
when people are talking about furthering modern franchises and whatnot, even if you don't bring back anybody, as long as you are true to the world and the narrative structure or feeling that you're trying to convey with the original source material, then great. Like, I'm glad that you're living in that world with a new story. If it doesn't feel like you're in that world, then it's a waste of time. It's just putting bumper stickers on shit.
The idea you're talking about here, I think the Predator movies are actually pretty unique in that we have 7 movies. And if you really think about it,
There's no
All
returning
7
cast.
movies have no returning cast.
None.
Not a single one of them. The
Nope.
closest you have is the son of a character showing up later, the Keys
Yeah,
character.
Jake Busey.
But no
I love
cast
Jake
members-
Busey.
and the Predator himself, played by the same actor in 2 movies. but he's
Jonathan
not
Taylor
really-
Thomas. Yeah,
but he's
no,
not
I
really
know.
he's not. I want to throw out some negatives real quick. They're more like
Yes.
nitpicks. They're not huge
All right.
negatives. And they're kind of nitpicks that I have already with the rest of the series. Pussy Predator always trying to self-destruct. Murtaugh, that's all I'm going to call him because he's basically just playing the same character as
Well, he
does in
doesn't.
Weapon
The
movies.
Predator doesn't self-destruct.
Better than
No,
Murtaugh.
that's what I'm saying. The Predator tries to when he gets his arm cut off. He's a big ass pussy, but Murtaugh stops him. Thwarts that. So
You're right.
another pussy Predator. Slaughterhouse scene is just a ripoff of the Aliens Hive scene. Not done. Like anybody who tries to do what Cameron did with that scene fails in every movie that attempts to do that. Like shooting people through monitors and things like that, but still creating it to be a tension.
Yeah, that was
scene.
an obvious. It was a very cringy, obvious attempt.
It
at
does.
Alien.
There's no tension. It's not the way that Cameron does it.
No, it's not. Not at all.
Yeah.
You don't know any of these people, so
Well, it
No,
just sort of
exactly.
drops in the middle of nowhere. It's just like, hey guys, we're in a van now.
John, what's his name from Full Metal Jacket?
Adam Baldwin.
Adam Baldwin.
Adam Baldwin goes, "They're gone. They're all dead."
Yeah.
They're gone. They're all dead.
There's tons of funny line delivery all throughout this movie. Tons of characters who just give very weird line deliveries. They're gonna die, man. Like Chiquita Alonso or whatever at the beginning. They're all gonna die, man. Morton Downey Jr. character. Every line that comes out of his mouth sounds weird and
Oh, but
overacted.
I loved his performance, and it reminded me and it is so very much of its time. Like if you know who Morton Downey Jr. is, it's like, oh, that asshole. But also, if you don't know who he is, he does play the role of like the media paparazzi 1997 post-apocalyptic media guy. Like he does a good job
sure,
at
it's more
being
than line
just
delivery.
that
It's just like
dick.
stuff comes out sounding weird. But yeah, I
think
don't know his character.
I think that is almost the humanization of the satire that was brought to us in RoboCop.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
and only 2 years earlier.
The thing that ruins this movie, the worst thing about this movie, Bill Paxton. I love him. I cannot stand him in this movie. He almost ruins the movie. I wish he would.
He's
shut
not.
his
He's not
fucking mouth.
great. He's not fantastic in
He's
this.
terrible. Every line is terrible.
Right now.
I do think this is his weakest out of like the that big run that we get of Bill Paxton.
Yeah,
I think that Stephen Hopkins was like, dude, just be the guy that we know you as and just dial it up to 11. And obviously he got just the worst parts of the script.
yeah.
Like the script gave him the worst shit ever.
Terrible jokes, terrible
Yeah.
pickup lines. They make him a
Hey,
bumbling idiot.
hey,
He's-
do you mind? That's my sister. Hey,
Yeah,
you're not
what
my
the fuck is
sister.
that?
Hey, you mind? My sister. Wait, what? Oh, you're not my sister, are you?
And then again, they try to make Paxton's character go out similarly to the way he does in Aliens, like
Yes, they
talking
do.
tough as he's going down with a fight. I just don't like any of it. I don't like almost
All right.
anything that happens surrounding his character. And another point that makes no sense. They say, "Oh, he's this hotshot cop. He's kick ass over in the other station, but he wants to come down here where the real action's happening and really get dirty." And then on like day 1 or day 2 in this new place that he's a top cop. He's supposed to be. If he's such a good cop, you'd think he'd know some of the information about the area he's going to. Who's King Willie? I've never heard of him.
No,
Please explain him to me. It's a good one where you see his body fall down into the train track. Like, I like his death or his aftermath death.
Ruben Blades, it goes
Dies
it
too
goes-
early.
Dies too early. I
too
wish we had more of
early.
him. He would be a pick for me, but he dies. A little too
He
early.
was so good in the screen time that he had, and then he just dies.
He's better
like a
than
bitch.
yeah.
No, I love the blood. You can just see like there's a PA on set like pouring it out of a bottle. Like
Yeah.
when the blood comes down, it's like, dude, that's not coming out of a human being. That's coming out of a bottle.
Yeah. Two standouts for me are not even really major characters, just fun to bring up. the comics accurate Nick Fury who plays the captain. Whoever that dude is that plays the captain,
he does look like the
actor.
original Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so good. And it goes against the traditional sort of trope of the captain being against the rogue cop. Like the captain, Pilgrim.
The captain's on his side. Yeah.
Captain Pilgrim is always supporting Harrigan.
Yeah, he is.
Is that his name, Captain Pilgrim?
But again, Scotty, his hands are tied. The feds are calling the shots.
Damn it, Mike. The feds are calling the shots on this. My hands are tied.
Here is the real standout of the movie, the alien skull. It's done more to continue the Predator movies than any characters have. I mean, just that little moment with the skull got us. I mean, there may not be the greatest movies, but we got 2 more movies out of it. And the failure of one of those movies, I think helped push us back into making regular Predator movies to some degree.
Yes.
Where they're like, okay, we need to go back to the basics and get some more of just the standard Predator action.
The alien skull, the xenomorph skull, is better than the entire film Alien vs. Predator 2. Requiem.
I agree.
Agreed. Best kill in this movie for me is Gary Busey, where you see him get cut in half, but you don't see his upper half fall. You see the blood come out, but you never see the second half of his body fall. I don't know why, but it's great. It's a great kill. And like I said, standout performance for me, Gary Busey, 100%.
Lions, the tigers, the bears. Oh my.
I wish
Again, like it's such a nothing role. It's like it's a very small thing where he could have just ended up acting like Captain Pilgrim, where he's just like a guy. But he's Gary Busey. So like,
but again, he's Joel Silver's bringing him over from Lethal Weapon.
He says throughout the story, he's like, you have no idea what you're dealing with. Finally,
he turns out to be a pretty good guy. Yeah, he turns out to not be a dick. He's doing his job, and when they bring Harrigan into the thing, they welcome him in. So
he does try to work with him. And
this Predator is a hothead teenager. I've heard that from multiple people. Not as young as Prey, but cocky, kind of like a quarterback. Like a cocky high school quarterback. Makes mistakes, goes off the cuff, does stupid things, and ultimately gets defeated by a 55-year-old geriatric fucking guy in a hand-to-hand fight scene. Like, he cannot, there's no excuses. He beat you with a fucking blade.
A blade that was stolen from you.
Yes.
The thing is
that also
that
cut your fucking arm off.
This Yautja showed up in the middle of a rave and decided that he was going to go and kill anything that fucking moved.
Yeah.
And then got a little cocky. Harrigan was only 3 days from retirement, and he was gonna fuck you up.
I'm too old for this shit.
Exactly.
He literally dropped himself into, John said, these earlier movies, it was all about the heat, temperature, and stuff like that. But he dropped himself into a drug
conflict.
war.
They make the point that they come to the hottest places where there's conflict.
Yeah.
They mention that it's like Hiroshima, Beirut, Cambodia.
He gets dropped into a place where he's almost out of his depth because there's feuding drug gangs that are loaded with guns, and then there's off the cuff cops and stuff like that. And you don't know if the Predator. The one thing we never know about the Predators is do they do the research on what's going on, not just with location, but what's going on in the world in those locations. This one I think does the best job out of all of them and saying yes, it does. It's doing that on purpose. That's why it goes after King Willie and
it targets the gangs to some degree, so it knows who the dangerous prey for it to go after are.
And it also saves the animalistic sex woman's life in this one, because those guys were gonna fucking kill her.
Oh, by the way, is she still single?
Predator looks great. Stan Winston. Did Stan Winston actually return to work on this, or is it just
Yeah.
Well, it still looks great. Still realized, has that texture, has that sweaty look and everything that we want. Adds a lot of new weapons, ups the arsenal, shows us the medic kit in more description and stuff. So
isn't this the first time that they show the net?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And Danny Glover gets out of it. he
Yeah,
gets
you
out of
don't
it because he's got
see-
the blade.
I feel that Predator 2 is the most connected film of the entire series. It has the most connections to everything in both directions. 1997 LA event is mentioned, and photos are shown in The Predator. The government agency chasing the Predator is established in this film, and it continues to show up in The Predator. Keyes talks about 1987's event in South America. He doesn't say Valverde, but he doesn't call it Guatemala. He just says South America. Among other references to the original film, obviously just a direct sequel has lots of references to the original film. Adds lots of new weapons and tech and vision modes that will become staples for future films. Shows us the different looks of predators and that they sometimes travel in packs. That's established in that final scene when they come back to pick him up and you see all these different ones. They don't necessarily play up that they might be different species or races within the predators in that scene, but it does show that they travel together in packs or whatever, and that there's a lot of different ones and different ways that they look.
The Predator is not thrown out in a pod, left alone to go do his fishing because he's super badass. They're there to supervise him because he's not that
And
experienced.
apparently there to clean up the mess
Yeah.
to some degree, but they don't. They just fly away.
It is credit to the mythology of all of Predator and I have to say it's because of the xenomorph skull, but that is the thing where my analysis of this movie becomes heightened because there is that precious moment of the xenomorph in the Predator universe, and it opened my mind, and it was like, oh, what, they live in the same place? Oh,
And within that continuity, it totally still worked. The aliens didn't have any interactions with humans, but they did at Predators. By 1997, Predators and aliens had battles, but it had nothing to do with humans, and that still worked for everybody's timeline.
Well, it depends on what timeline you're looking at. If you're talking about,
no, I don't think it does.
No, listen, Scotty. If you're talking
I
about
refuse to listen to your Jabberwocky.
If you're talking about the Prometheus timeline, there is no xenomorphs.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Is like in the infinite nature of the galaxy, the Predator would have fought with the xenomorph before humans interacted with the xenomorph.
Danny Glover ends this movie covered in ash. Has a white face. And is that acceptable because Arnold ends the first movie essentially in blackface covered in mud? It kind of feels like they're making a point of like, well, Arnold kind of did blackface covered in mud in the first movie. The movie has that exact ending where it's like the cop ending. He's walking out, you get the wide shot that pulls back, you got police cars pulling up with their
You'll
sirens,
get another
and the
chance.
music kicks in. It's that ending, Ben, that you always talk about.
Yeah.
Damn, we were so close. And he goes, "Don't worry, asshole. You'll get another chance." I fucking love that line, man.
I mean, they kind of did, but like that should have been paid off better, where we got a proper sequel to Predator 2 much sooner.
Oh, come on.
Budget was 35 million, box office was 30 million. Worldwide was 54. It doubled the budget of the first film, but made half of what the first film made. Scotty, to blow your mind, who's clearly a huge fan. I mean, we all are. We all love this movie. But you are a huge fan of this movie. Can you believe that it has a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes and an audience score of only 44?
I've known that forever, and that just disgusts
That
me.
pissed me off when I saw that.
I think it's one of the best sequels of all time. And if you want to give it B-level, like B-movie sequel, that's fine. It's still better than a lot of your B-movie sequels.
I think this is the most rewatchable movie out of the entire series. And that includes number one, rewatchability, not quality. I know the first one's a better made movie, perfect action movie. I find this one to be more fun, and it's probably due to the success of the first one kind of laying the groundwork and the foundation.
And allowing this one to go get running right away and just be excited.
That was my next thing I was going to say. Like, the reason this one shines is because it doesn't need to do that. That's already happened. And it makes it different enough too. Like, forget about the switching locations and forgetting the cast. It's like, it's such a different movie, but it still has the bones of the first one.
Connection to the first one. Yeah. And Ben, I would kind of agree with you you, this might be the more rewatchable of the first two. What hurts it for me to agree with you on that is Bill Paxton. Really, just great to me. And thankfully he dies halfway through. I don't have to deal with him. If you're asking me, he definitively puts it below the original.
You're so mad at Bill Paxton.
But I don't think it's Bill Paxton. I don't
Paxton.
think it's Bill Paxton's fault. His script scenes are just awful.
I don't get why you're mad at Bill Paxton.
Aliens vs. Predator released in 2004. There's an unrated version of this movie that actually starts in 1904 in Antarctica. So technically this would put it before the first Predator movie, at least for the scene that starts the film in the unrated version. This film was directed by Paul Anderson. After Paul Anderson's last film received such terrible reviews as, upon watching this movie, I feel my IQ has gone down and I'll never look at Adam Sandler the same way after all his awkward smile scenes and seeing him wreck an innocent bathroom and smash crackhead faces in with a tire iron. Punch drunk stupid. This does not make any sense as a movie. Characters do not make any sense. They do not have a life story, or if they do, it is not supposed to be what we see. The characters speak nonsense. You just wrote nonsense, fucking reviewer.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up!
Anderson decided to move away from the auteur space and venture into outer space with AVP. PTA had considered doing the sequel, but the studio wouldn't go for the title. There Will Be Green Acid Blood.
I drink it up!
I think that everyone who is performing in this, I think that they do a great job.
They're doing what they have with the material they have, so I agree with you, Scotty. They're not bad.
Like this is a PG-13 CW Alien versus Predator, and I think they're doing a great job.
You kind of pointed out, because I feel like it's kind of like B-level acting, but yeah, like TV acting is kind of what it feels like.
But it does have Tommy Flanagan in it, though. Come on.
Tommy Flanagan is the bomb.
Yeah,
Budget for this was $70 million. The most expensive movie in the Predator series. Actually, no, I'm sorry. The Predators was more expensive. We'll get to that.
well, at the time.
Yeah, at the time. Okay, so this movie made $80 million in the US. It had an opening weekend of $38 million, which is very impressive. I remember like everyone calling it a big hit on its opening weekend because of that number, and then it faded very quickly. It still pulled out 80 million and 172 worldwide, which is pretty impressive, but everyone labels this a failure.
It was not a failure.
Even as like a box office thing, they kind of think it's a failure, but it's like that. Those are some good numbers. The Rotten Tomatoes score for this gem of a movie is 21%.
Oh, that's hard.
Bullshit.
You know,
And the audience score,
Tomatoes.
the people like us that should know better, gave it a 39%.
Paul W.S. Anderson, the brilliant mind behind
Mortal
No,
Kombat.
he actually did do Event Horizon.
Event Horizon.
Oh,
which
he
probably
did
did this
Event
job.
Horizon?
The movie he was actually coming off of, not Punch Drunk Love, was the first Resident Evil movie, I believe. So I think he actually does a really good job. I can't tell you much about all those other films that he has made. I've seen them all, but there's nothing that stands out in terms of his directorial style coming from those movies. But I think there's some nice flourishes in this movie. They do a lot to set up a lot of characters, a lot of locations, and a lot of concepts very quickly in this movie. It moves at a really good pace, but it's not totally rushed to make sure that we get some Predator and Alien action too early in the movie. It still takes its time, but a lot happens in like 20 minutes in this movie. And then we start getting to the temple, and they take their time to establish what's going on at the temple as well. I thought there's some nice moments, directorial moments showing how we move throughout the temple. Some of it's just done with like the hologram that shows up on the wrist, and that gives them the ability to go into the hologram, move throughout the temple, and then reestablish themselves in a new space. But there are other moments that do it just with camera tricks of moving throughout the temple, or moving us back up to the surface where things are going on. There's some nice directorial flourishes throughout some of those moments and how those transitions are handled. Oh, the moment where the Predator ship flies over silently and like it causes the wind to blow up and kick up and all this stuff is moving around. Like that's a wonderful little directorial moment, I thought.
Yeah.
The final blow on the Queen Alien at the end, where the Predator jumps up and is like coming out of the side of the frame and gets the spear through the head. That's a really cool directorial moment, I would say, as well, like the way that shot was conceived. This movie does not work well as an Alien movie. It breaks all kinds of Alien rules. I mean, the origins of this movie to some degree, obviously it comes from the comic and Predator 2. Predator 2 showing us the skull that gave us the cinematic launch pad for this. The comics actually having stories that tell the actual battles that happen between predators and aliens. It gave us all the inspiration and direction we could go with that. Fans like ourselves expected it a lot sooner, but thankfully we eventually got it. 2004. Paul Anderson, whatever his name is, had this idea when he was reading the comics. He wrote up this idea about the temple and everything, the Antarctica stuff. Like that all came from him. Yeah. There were other scripts and ideas being discussed in Hollywood of how to bring the aliens and predators together. But in the early 2000s, late 90s, the real push by the studio was trying to figure out how to get Ridley Scott and Cameron back involved in the series. And there was an idea that Sigourney was kind of behind. Cameron was going to write the script. Ridley was going to direct. It would be considered Alien 5. Sigourney was involved. I'm not sure exactly at what point that script that the Predator versus Alien approach was favored over that script.
The success of Freddy versus Jason.
But that was just 1 year before. I feel like this was kind of already.
No. They pushed it, dude.
They rushed
Alien versus Predator was shot in like 3 months.
Okay, well that makes sense. So they thought they were maybe going to pursue this Cameron Ridley Scott project. Freddy vs. Jason comes out, huge success. They see the dollar signs that they want to put these two finally together and just make a quick version of that. And when Cameron and Ridley Scott heard that, they said, fuck you, we're not involved with Aliens or Predators movies anymore. We're out. And Cameron's quote, again, maybe Hollywood myth, but Cameron's quote to them was like, fuck you guys, you're basically just doing Frankenstein and the Wolfman. In the radio station that sees the satellite heat signature of the temple firing up, the guy watching TV is watching Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. So it's a little nod to the Versus movies that came before, and it's also a Hollywood nod to Cameron making that quote.
Like we could have had an Alien movie written, directed, produced by Ridley Scott and James Cameron, but we got AVP instead.
It had been test driven by Dark Horse Comics in the Alien versus Predator comic runs.
AVP did not take any storylines from any Dark Horse comics, though. There was no fucking pyramid in the Antarctic. Like,
well, no, I'm just gonna say
it was like a third grader wrote that shit.
Was there not some imagery in the comics of a horde of aliens going after some predators, whether they were on a pyramid
Isn't that
or not?
rad?
No, but was that in the? I feel like that was in the comic. I love that Queen Alien satellite. The satellite that looks like Queen Alien. What a great way to start the movie. Really cool, inspired shot. Get us excited right from the beginning. Production design, practical effects are all done really well in this movie. Not so much. I mean, we're going to talk about the Predators in this movie specifically when we get there. The Alien stuff looks great. The Predators, not so much. But the practical effects are really appreciated. Yeah. I really like the laser blast. Cuts a hole down to the temple. That's like kind of a really cool sci-fi concept realized in this movie. It looks good the way it's realized. I actually like, me, I like plant and payoff. This isn't like or like things that create consequences within action scenes. This isn't necessarily like a plant earlier and then a payoff later, but I like that there's a very realistic reason why they have trouble when they're climbing down the tunnel and one of them, detached and slides. Lance Henriksen, he has to be saved. It's because the wind kicks up, a tarp flies off of something and gets caught in the wires. Like that's a very realistic thing to create that situation. And I really appreciate not just stupid writing to just be like, well, we need a problem. Just something's going to happen. Like that's what would have happened. The pods that hit the snow. I love that scene. That's so cool looking. The 3 pods that come out, the way they look, the way that they fit into the style of Predator tech that we've already seen. Like they fit the design that we expect to see Predator technology. And they just look, I think that whole shot of them hitting the snow and stuff is realized really well. Queen Alien chamber looks really great. And I like the frozen Queen Alien, like again, all the practical effects of this, the ice falling off of it and stuff. Everything with that it's all real. That's why it's so great. It's not CGI. Eventually, there's some bad CGI in the movie.
Yeah, but like that is a moment where they do turn the Predator, the Yautja, into Klingons. They're just Klingons.
Yeah, kind of. I can see that.
Yeah.
And then they pull back out of that, and I like that, is because once you have the aliens versus the predators and they're fighting, like obviously the aliens are going to be the bad guys.
Alien versus
Yes, sir.
Predator fight is worth the wait.
Yeah.
Actually pays off and is the best part of the movie.
It's a great
The
fight.
fight is fucking awesome. I love the Indiana Jones vibes that you get sometimes. That like near miss, like the trying to get through the closing walls. And the blade comes flying through at the last second, and he's able to fall and miss it. And my last positive is just the final fight is actually exciting, and the effects are pretty great. It's great to see a queen alien rampaging in the snow. That's a really fun moment that you get.
Well, it's really fun to see a queen alien like getting like brought down to like the depths of the sea, and you're like, you don't even know, like, can this alien survive this?
I think
and,
it
like,
will. It survives in space. It can survive down there.
Yeah,
too.
it's probably gonna survive that, but how's it gonna like?
She's chained to a water tank that's pushed into the ice. It drags her down. I mean, she gets stabbed a bunch of times. She gets chopped up. There's a bunch of stuff that happens to her, but ultimately she's chained. She's got a chain around her. It's the Jason and Crystal Lakes.
She's just dragged to the bottom of the ocean.
That's exactly what it is,
Pole.
John. It's the Jason part 6 or whatever, where it's like stuck. Because you're like, how long is this fucking alien stuck down there?
In 10 years.
And to be honest,
don't you remember Alien versus Predator 1?
They should.
There was an alien queen at the bottom of the North Atlantic.
But yeah, I really like the shot of it being pulled down into the water because it's very reminiscent of Aliens, of the queen falling out into space.
It's also sequel,
even though that's probably one of
it's more like slow motion. Like,
one of the milliseconds
of
Aliens that I could take some kind of umbrage with was the little kicking legs of the alien as it's flying out in space.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
Just treat the aliens like they call them in the movie, serpents. Like, we don't know what they are. They're just like serpents. They haven't fought the colonial marines. They're nothing. Like, it's two completely separate movie entities, 100%. But I do really respect this movie for taking its time to open up and then show the people on the boat. And there's a cool, I mean, it's all CGI, but the cool shot of like the boat going through the Arctic and stuff like that. It's interesting shot. And then you're getting more and more stuff about Waylon. Like, is he dying? Like, what's going on with him? And then you get him with Lex. I think the lead character's name is Lex, I think.
Yes.
And they like her because reasons. Again, like for the first time in like a Predator or Aliens movie, really takes a long time. Yeah, this Whalen Arctic station where some crazy shit goes down. You get some penguin action, stuff like that.
We don't know which creature is the cooler of the bunch. We have to show them both being kind of even, like they did in Freddy vs. Jason.
But the Predator
punched each other the same amount of times. They do treat the Predator with more respect in this movie, I would say.
Yeah.
But what kind of honor do you have from the xenomorphs? Like, they are kind of like, they're dicks. I think it's a television version. It is a PG-13 movie. I think does show off these monsters in a way that can open it up without the shackles of continuity. You don't need to know who Ripley is. You don't need to know who Mike Harrigan is. We have aliens. We got predators. They're going to fight. Do you want to see that? And I think this movie does a good job at that.
It could have just been that, and people would still be like, I'm signing up, I want to see it. But I think it actually takes time to develop characters, not necessarily personally ones I care that much about, but it takes time to develop characters, it takes time to develop its story, it takes time to introduce this location and all of its different facets, how it works. I think it does a lot of work that other lesser films would just say, well, we got aliens and predators in our movie. That's all we need.
No, you're right. It's better than it should have been.
Yeah.
For sure.
As much as I like what Paul Thomas Anderson did in this film, Wes Anderson could have done a better job. There are just way too many like camera zooms in off-screen kind of kills where nothing really happens, just somebody screams and the camera kind of moves towards them.
Oh yeah.
There's a few too many of that for my liking. I still really like this movie, but there's a few too many for my liking. Charles Bishop Whalen, very forced to make an alien connection, but I don't have to worry about that because we're here to talk about Predator movies. So I'm not really going to go into all my thoughts about why the issues connected to aliens movies. It lives in this universe.
It's nice to see Lance Henriksen. Don't be a sourpuss.
Speaking of Whalen, what What's in Waylon's inhaler that he's sucking?
Nicotine and phosphorus.
Because I feel like when in his death scene, he uses the same shit from his inhaler to create a flamethrower. What is he sucking down his throat?
I thought it was supposed to be like concentrated oxygen.
So a steady stream of oxygen with a flame in front of it would ignite and create a flamethrower?
Depends on the concentration of the oxygen. If it were liquid, I don't know. Jägermeister.
Stupid aside.
They do characterize each of the aliens. They make one a bad guy. They make one a good guy.
Well, they do the
and teams are made.
So
but when it comes down to it,
well, and it's very
distinct,
but then that alien doesn't do anything. You know?
Oh, that alien is freaking awesome. That alien
I love how they do that. I love how they do the
which alien? The one with the face, right?
It's called
or
the
the
grid
other
alien,
one,
like the grid alien. The score doesn't stand out at all. It's like barely even noticed. I barely even noticed the score, which is a shame.
There's a one or two hints of Alan Silvestri, but nothing like in Aliens or anything like that.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna go into my list of bullshit that just doesn't work. Okay. The predators are considered teenagers. Giant sized predators we've ever seen. They are ridiculously large. They look horrible. Worst.
I heard that was the designer of those predators regretted that, like by making them so kind of bulky.
When it comes to the predator getting a face hugger on him, which I think is a completely bullshit moment of the movie. He's like putting his mask back on and he still gets one on him. And then he's fine.
Okay with
and he goes on. He lasts for, we don't know. There's no clock to tell me, but let's say 3 hours or something. Just 10 minutes before, to a human, it was instantaneously. But to the predator, he lasts long enough for us to wrap up the movie so that he can be brought into the ship. And then I also hate this because I like movies. I don't like when movies just force something stupid just to do it. The group of predators that brought him back into the ship is the final shot of the movie. And they walk away and you see the body laying on the table so the pred alien can pop out of its chest. It takes 8 seconds. Again, I'm a nerd sometimes and I want to count this to piss myself off. Yeah. 8 seconds from the time the predators exit the frame to the thing jumping out. No one in the ship is still close enough to know that this had happened. No one was like, it bugs me with that. The Queen Alien knows to break itself out. Now, yes, it could be some kind of thing where they do kind of read each other's minds. I know that's a thing within the alien, the way they communicate. It's like this nonverbal thing, and maybe they understand things that are going on to other aliens. Basically, when the predators are trying to, like, the predators beat the grid alien, I think, or a couple other aliens, and it's almost like the Queen Alien knows we're losing this battle. You have to break me out, and tells its minions to start pouring acid, which works. But like, why didn't any other queen know to do this before? Why is this the first queen that has been able to use this? And I love that we get the final battle with the Queen Alien. So for the sake of action and adventure, I'm totally on board with it. But logically, if this happens in multiple points throughout the world, every 100 years, another Queen Alien would be smart enough to use that tactic, escape, and the world would know about aliens because of that. But again, we're not here to talk about how this works within that timeline. Their forceful push out of the tunnel by the explosion would have killed them, and their run away from the fireball.
Oh, dude! But how funny is that? How funny is that scene though, where her and the predator are on like the snow thing, and then it shoots off, and like to me that's self-awareness right there. You know this movie is silly when you're doing that.
It's jumping the orca in that moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's truly his dad, but if this is supposed to be 3 teenagers, maybe that's dad that comes to pick him up at the end. Was that ship sitting there the whole time, or did it land? Because it is massive, and there
must have been there for like an hour. Because
it had to be sitting there, because otherwise it would have like landed on them, or they'd know that it landed.
I think that the predators in this movie are entitled rich kid assholes that are like, Mom, Dad, we need to go to Disneyland, and that pyramid is Disneyland.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf! We want it now!
So that's where I stand.
And that's why I feel like it's their dad that comes to pick them up at the end. Standout character is the grid alien. That's the best character of the movie for me, personally. The ABP movie starts the comedically large helmets, dark helmet size helmets. It's fucking ridiculous.
I can't breathe in this thing.
And their blades, their blades are like 7 feet long now. It's just stupid.
You remember they're only like 2 inches in the first movie, and then it's
inside the fucking unit.
Yeah.
It's like logical.
This is the movie where it's like 3 feet long.
This also is the first movie where the predators can't stop making their predator noises. Anytime they're supposed to be even remotely close, you hear the little clicking and shit. It's like, come on, they know how to be more stealthy. I know you're trying to clue audience members in, and we all like to hear that, but and this is the first movie to do it, but it continues. Every movie beyond this, even Prey,
John, can you do your best Predator impression?
I don't know.
That's pretty good.
That was really fucking good.
You know, the reason I was laughing so hard is because I didn't realize that until you said it, John. Like, they're just constantly making the predator noises.
From this movie on. Every movie from this point on. But the aliens look great. I would say, honestly, this is like, besides Alien and Aliens, this is the second best or third best movie the aliens have shown up in terms of the look of the alien. The practical effects used to create aliens and Queen Alien look awesome. Predators look like shit throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, predators look really laughably bad. I think that they're kind of comical, sort of.
Yeah, they are.
I can't breathe in this thing.
The Predator ship exterior has enough similarities to previous films, which is basically just part 2 to some degree, and that design continues in future films. But the interior is totally different, and it kind of upsets me. Like, that's a cool look in Predator 2, the red textured walls and stuff. In this one, it's all like steel. It looks very human. It looks.
In Predator 2, it's a ship of like just a bunch of random predator people like taking care of their young guy. This one, the way that the predator at the end like turns his back to our character with his cape, it leads me to believe that he's like a coach, sort of like a high school football coach. And like the way that the predator like throws its like, cape to the girl, it's almost like, you just killed my son. My son was the star of the team. No, there's things like that throughout this entire series that like leads you to, theorize on like what these predators meant to like their race or their family or whatever. And I think
they're Klingons.
This is the first movie that has the giant spinning kind of Chinese star blade that it uses. It uses to great effect in this movie. One of the best weapons it uses in this movie, and it shows up in 2 other movies in the future. So that, continues on. The Predators self-destruct again. They're a bunch of fucking pussies.
We've got Bush.
And the only thing I have left to say is the best kill of the movie for me is the alien and facehugger getting chopped up with the blade. It's not any of the characters. It's the facehugger that gets chopped in half and the alien face that gets chopped in half. That's my best kill for the movie.
Fuck you!
Alien vs. Predator Requiem was released in 2007. It's a terrible movie.
The end.
I think that's all you need to say.
It's a mean movie. Have you ever wondered about the beauty of childbirth? Well, Alien vs. Predator Requiem will remind you that a bunch of facehuggers can like make you explode from your pregnant belly. I think it's exploitative.
Yeah.
I would suggest if you're like 8 months pregnant, or like you just did the pregnancy test and you and your wife and your husband or whatever, you're all excited about the new baby that's on the way, go and sit down and watch Alien vs. Predator Requiem and the movie Inside back to back. Make that your double feature.
Oh, and also Teeth. Alien vs. Predator Requiem is one of the most mean-spirited, boring, nothing happens movies that ever. You are literally watching people run towards horrible things that happen, and then at the end of it, someone makes a quip
I could not agree with you more.
What is the quip?
It's so fucking mean-spirited and gross and boring. Like, mean-spirited can be interesting if it's like a Sam Raimi movie or something like that, you know, where there's a purpose behind it. Man, this movie is just uninteresting, unscary. There's just nothing about this movie that works, especially the photography, which you can't even see what the fuck's happening.
In my opinion, there's nothing to like about this movie.
Nothing
at all. Well, I'll give one thing when we if we want to go over best kill, but that other than that,
maybe a pair of
Well,
tits.
best kill
Maybe
is
a
the
pair of
baby.
tits.
but they killed her. That was the problem. Okay, anyway, Ben, you will totally get
You
this
never-
because you've said it
baby.
500 times. A Good Day to Die Hard is one of the worst sequels ever made to a blockbuster, you know, part of a series that has many entries that everybody loves, and then this one is just such a pile of dog shit beyond almost any other series that has attempted to you know, have 4 or 5 sequels and just put out something that is so shitty compared to the quality of the previous films. But this takes the cake as worse, and I would probably have to label it the worst sequel
No.
to ever be produced for any kind of
100%.
major film. And
100%.
part of that is, like, at least that one you've got like Bruce Willis, like an actor that even though he's doing nothing, like you still enjoy Bruce Willis being Bruce Willis. Not just a bad sequel to one film series you love, but ruining 2 film series that you love at the same time. And then just all the things you guys pointed out of how terrible this movie is at every turn. I have nothing to say, certainly nothing positive. I don't even really want to spend time talking about the negatives because it's just everything about the movie.
Yeah, there's
It
no
really
re-
fits
yeah.
that description of like
Well-
one of the worst movies ever produced.
It should have been filmed better, lit better, and cast better, written better.
Basically everything. Should
Everything about Alien versus Predator 2
If they actually
was
shot
built
this,
around the fact that they had a Predalien and woohoo.
If they
And so,
actually
like,
shot this-
what do you want? What do you want? And that's what they made a monster movie without even caring about storytelling. They were just making a slasher film. I
What do
don't
you-
care.
let's take some
It's
guesses.
got-
What do you think the Rotten
It's gonna be
Tomatoes score
7.
is?
No, it's gonna be like 11%.
12. You were very close.
Hey, Price is Right rules. Close to
12%.
The first review that I ever wrote for Rotten Tomatoes, when they actually allowed like Joe Schmo to be on there before it was just all shills, was for a movie called Skyline. And Skyline was directed by these 2 assholes that directed this
yeah.
movie. And it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. The Brothers Strauss is what they
Yeah.
call themselves.
Audience score 30%. I don't know how it gets even that kind of audience score. That's wild because this is such a terrible movie. The box office was 41 million. That's how much it made in America. 128 worldwide. What the fuck? And this movie takes place in 2004, immediately after the events of Alien vs. Predator. I guess in the part 2, it's more like
Colorado always
they're not
screams
going there
hot.
for a specific hunt. They're basically trying to clean up a mess. That's why one.
Well, no, but it is a direct result of Alien versus Predator 1.
Yeah,
is
but it's
that at the end of Alien versus Predator 1,
The ship
there
wreck.
is an explosion of a Predalien. And it's like, how did that happen? I guess it happened.
the Colorado
Yes.
setting is just a result of their ship crashing there, and they have to go there to deal with it. They're not
Yeah.
going there because of a hunt, because of conflict, because of
No.
temperature, which are the things that are kind of established in certain films. Like,
Yeah.
I buy more into they like to hunt in the hot environments, but we do have 2 movies. Yeah, because I feel like Prey, clearly, Northern Plains in September is not a hot environment, and Antarctica, clearly not a hot environment. And they go to those places specifically.
Thanks everybody for watching our Predator series revisited part 2. Part 3 is on its way. Until then, please like and subscribe, give some comments down in the comment section below, and we drink your cinema.